The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you. Let the celebration begin.
Reuben, it's my favorite time of the year because we get to use the phrase legal tampering, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how this has all evolved. People tampered all the time, but the league finally just said, all right, you just take a few days to tamper. It's really the start of free agency. I mean, there's no, the legal tampering is now, all it means is free agency starts on Monday instead of in a couple of days. So, here we go.
It is pretty silly. And this is the Eagle Eye Podcast with Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. We'll get into some of it. The Eagles have been pretty quiet, which we expected. Brandon Graham gets a modest extension. Jalen Mills is gone. Another defensive player is gone. We'll talk about some of the market and what we've seen already, what it might mean for Derek Barnett. But Reuben, it's funny because this year there was no combine, and I was kind of wondering if that would slow the pace down a little bit, because the combine is normally, there's no tampering at the combine, but you're putting the entire NFL in the same city for a week. Same bars for a week. Yeah. I mean, that a lot of stuff gets started in Indianapolis. So I was really wondering if we'd see a slower pace this year, and that hasn't been the case. I mean, we've seen a typical new era free agency tampering period, whatever you want to call it, on Monday. We're recording this around 5:00 on Monday, just to give people kind of an idea of where we are, because things happen so quickly. But I guess we should start with Brandon Graham. He gets an extension, a 1-year extension. He was about to go into the final year of that 3-year deal he signed a while back. So it makes sense. I mean, this is something we have talked about for a while, even before we knew they were working on it. It just made sense.
Yeah, you're right. It made sense for both of them. I mean, if Brandon Graham was on the open market, I love Brandon Graham, and he's still an 8-sack, 8, 9, 10 sack guy. Didn't get to 10 last year, but made the Pro Bowl. But on the open market at his age, he's not going to get. The last thing he needs at this point in his career is to go to a new place. He wants to finish his career here, and he's always said that. This will give them the opportunity to do that, and also gives the Eagles their best pass rusher back. That shouldn't be the case when you drafted Derek Barnett in the first round. It shouldn't be the case at BG's age and all that, but it is, and he keeps himself in great shape. And he by doing that, he earned this by taking care of himself and playing at a high level longer than most edge rushers do. He earned himself some more money. So it makes sense for the Eagles, makes sense for BG. And I think it's, we've talked about this. No Eagles Pro Bowler has finished their career here or retired here since Mike Quick. That was 30 years ago. So there's a couple guys that have a chance to do that: Kelsey, Fletcher, BG. And I think those three guys are kind of the veteran nucleus that you want to keep, at least for now. And I think for Eagles fans, it gives, even when you're rebuilding, you still want those kind of a few of those legacy guys who are still good. You still want them here. And you have some kind of, I don't know. I think it's good for the fans to see a few of those guys, as long as they can still play and earn their keep. See them still in an Eagles uniform. And even if next year's a tough year, you can still root for BG and Kelsey and Fletch. So I'm not going to have them around too much longer, but they will be here this coming year.
Yeah, and BG will be here next year too. That's what the extension basically means. The terms of it, it's basically it becomes a 2-year deal worth around $20 million. Most of it is a signing bonus for cap purposes, and they'll spread out the cap hit over the next 5 years. Even though the contract runs out, they'll have the dummy years on there. So it helps the Eagles from that perspective too. He was about to have a just under $18 million cap hit, and the Eagles are in a tough spot. So helps them on that front. They get to keep the player for a year longer, and he's happy about it, not just because he gets a chunk of change in his pocket, but because he doesn't want to leave here. I mean, he just doesn't. And you've said it, it's rare for any great players finish their careers elsewhere a lot, because a lot of those longtime players want to keep playing, and maybe BG does. Last year he said he wants to play 15 years. This contract won't quite do that, so maybe he doesn't. Maybe this doesn't allow him to finish his career here, but it gives him a better shot. And there's no reason to think he's going to just fall off a cliff. I mean, he's been pretty durable, and he doesn't have. I mean, you have to remember he didn't become a starter until pretty late in his career. So he has, you would think he has a little bit longer shelf life than a lot of players who came into the league and really played a lot early. He didn't.
Yeah, I think that helps. And I think he really does take care of himself. He doesn't, and he's talked about this. I think every year he realizes he needs to do a little more during the off season. And some guys don't do that. And we've been around guys that don't do that. And their careers end when they're 30, 31. And, we've seen that happen. But I think as long as BG's getting his 6, 7, 8, 9 sacks a year, he'll be here and he'll play. There's no reason not to. I'm glad for personal reasons. He's a good dude. He's fun to have around. And I think he's, we talk about leadership a lot, and I think it's kind of trite in a lot of ways. Sometimes we probably throw it around too much, but I think the way BG's always really been a leader is he's just so positive, and he's really good to have around from that standpoint. I mean, when the Eagles are like, 4-9, he's the guy running around telling everybody to keep your head up. Let's just win this game. Don't worry about anything. If guys are struggling, young guys, I mean, he's always there with a positive word of encouragement. It's important to have that. And it's genuine with him. I mean, he's really one of the most positive people I've ever been around. And it's not fake. It's not put on. It's not just, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's who he is. And I think it rubs off on everyone in the organization from the maintenance guys in the NovaCare complex up to the owner. I think everybody appreciates that. I mean, when I run into BG in the hallway at the NovaCare complex, and I haven't done that in a year because we haven't been in that building since the end of the 2019 season, since locker cleanout day, probably, or a few days after that. Who was
when I sprinted from the airport to make it to Carson Wentz.
Wow, that was the last time we were there. I think were we there a couple of days later for Doug, or was that the same day? I had to get your bag off the carousel.
Yeah, I just left it.
and meet you, but I still got to the NovaCare in time for Carson. I'm not sure how that happened. That was the last time we were in the building. That seems like 5 years ago. But anyway, the point being, if you're having a bad day and you see BG in the hallway, and he's like, he always has something funny to say, or something to lift you up. And so I think there's a lot of value there. And I can't believe we haven't been in that building since that's a long time ago. That was after, yeah. Well, but anyway, I miss that building. I miss the frat house. I haven't been in the frat house in a year and a half either. But anyway, I'm glad.
The frat house, by the way, is the media house.
The media house. It's this disgusting, decrepit old building that's just covered in just bugs and termites and mice. And what's the word? What's the worst thing you've seen in there?
One time a squirrel got in.
Yeah.
And one of the poor security guards was about to heat up his food in the microwave, and the squirrel just kind of jumped out from behind it, and it sent a bunch of grown men like squealing. Yeah. It's like they don't really. I don't think they really get up there and clean it too often. Try to be nice about it. It's a nice building.
It's a nice. So it's one of the old original Navy Yard or not Navy Yard, but Naval Hospital buildings.
Yeah,
that was a Naval Hospital building back when the Naval Hospital was at that corner. But anyway, BG, I'm happy he's here.
So before the podcast, Rube goes, "We'll keep it quick to a half hour," and then
you got to stop rambling about stuff that's unimportant.
So yeah, Brandon Graham back. That's the biggest news so far for the Eagles. Another side note is Jalen Mills leaving. He goes to New England to the Patriots. 4-year deal, 24 mil, 9 mil guaranteed. That's a nice contract for him. I don't know if we'll see the entire 24 mil, but that's a pretty good contract for Jalen Mills. And it's good enough that it'll probably bring the Eagles back a comp pick, probably in the 5th, 6th round range, you would think. And that, it's funny, the Eagles root for guys to go get big money elsewhere if they're not going to come back.
Right. And I'm guessing the Eagles didn't make much of a push to keep him. I think they probably understood they couldn't keep him financially. Jalen Mills is a guy that, and you think about it, he was a 7th round pick. So his rookie contract was really, was very small. And then he got a good deal last year, 1 year, $4 million deal. But that signing bonus of $9 million, or a guaranteed money of $9 million, is more than he earned in his 5 years for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. He's earned more money from the Patriots already than from the Eagles. And he's been a good player. And I know a lot of fans, don't like Jalen Mills, and you can have your opinions, but he's been versatile. He's plays hard. He's not the fastest cornerback, and I assume they're going to play him at safety in New England. But he made that play at the end of the Falcons playoff game. He played well. He and Darby both played well in 17, and when they were healthy. And that play at the end on Julio. He's always been a good goal line defender. He's been a good red zone corner. That's where his lack of speed doesn't really hurt him. And he played well last year. I thought he was solid. He was going back and forth from safety to corner. Belichick's going to find the best ways to use him. I'm sure he'll move him around, and I'm sure he's got some interesting stuff in store for him. He's been a good Eagle. And, you get a guy like Jalen Mills in the 7th round, you got more than you bargained for with that pick. So wish him well. And, it's interesting. He was on the team that toppled Belichick in 17, and now he's with Belichick.
Yeah, Belichick watched that tape of the Super Bowl and thought, I got to have that guy.
A lot of Eagles cornerbacks and D-backs go up to New England. It's interesting.
Yeah. I think Jalen is realistically he's an average player, but yeah, the Eagles he was a 7th round pick. They got more out of him than they probably thought they were going to get. He played well at times. He didn't play well at times, but he was asked to do a lot. He is versatile. He plays corner and safety. He can play the nickel at times. He's nowhere near as good as he thinks he is, but that's what you want in a defensive back. You want him to have that confidence, and I think that helps him. He thinks he's the best player on the field, and he really believes it. And I think they'll miss him around the building. I don't know if they'll miss him on the field. I think it was probably the right thing to move on. In the short term, they might miss him. They don't really have anyone right now. They're in the market for a safety, you would think. They have Rodney McLeod coming off an ACL in the final year of his deal. Then they have a couple young guys and Marcus Epps and Kayvon Wallace. We just don't know about them. So
Grayland
Arnold, yeah, who they like, but we haven't really seen much of. So I think in the short term they might miss Jalen Mills, but it makes sense to move on.
He's only 26.
Yeah, he's young, but he got overpaid just now. He got overpaid last year by the Eagles.
Yeah.
So and it's not a knock on him, because I think he's an average to slightly above average at times player. But he's just not. He's not someone I would break the bank for. He's not someone, and I think the Eagles made the wise decision to not get into any kind of a bidding war for Jalen Mills. And I'm not trying to knock him. I think realistically, that's what he is.
Yeah. And I think he got the most out of what he has. I think he was one of those guys he's going to give you what he has. He just doesn't have all that much. It is interesting that, and I think all 4 free agents the Patriots signed are Drew Rosenhaus guys.
They are so far. Yeah.
I wonder if, why are the Patriots in such a hurry to get that deal done? Were there other teams offering a lot of money for Jalen Mills? Maybe. You would think they could have gotten him a little cheaper if they waited, but maybe they would have lost him. Eagles down to just 2 Jalen's, Hurts and Rager. So there's that. So when we go on the Zoom calls and Allie's like, Jaylen is getting ready, we'll have a better idea who it is. But yeah, it did make sense to keep him. But he was a good Eagle. And the list of Super Bowl, remaining guys from the Super Bowl team just continues to dwindle.
Yeah, it really does. And they'll have to replace him. John Johnson was a fun name to talk about for 2 hours until he signed with the Browns. I mean, that would have been, I don't think they really could have afforded him. And especially after seeing the numbers, it's a big deal. But he would have made a lot of sense from a football standpoint.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a good player, but what did he get? 3 years, $34 million?
Yeah.
No, I mean, they're just not in the position to do that. So I don't think that was ever realistic. I mean, people thought he was going to go to the Browns right off the bat. So good player, but I don't think it was meant to be here. Yeah,
it's a shame. I mean, I think the Eagles still they don't have a lot of cap space. I don't have any cap space right now. They're over the cap. They're going to get there. But you can backload deals. I mean, you can work it out that you can sign some free agents. I mean, they're going to sign free agents. It's not like they're just going to not sign anyone. They just might not be high-priced guys. And that's kind of what, when I did my series looking at targets, I tried to find some bargains. And I think that's what they're going to have to do. That's just the position they're in this year. But if there weren't other teams after Johnson, maybe. I mean, if you can limit the cap hit up front by pushing it back, which is what they're doing with everyone. And by the looks of these contracts, this cap for this year isn't bothering anyone. Teams know how to do this. I mean, teams know how to push it back. And it looks like that's my one takeaway so far is there's confidence around the league that once they get past this season, people will be back in the seats, the TV money's coming in, and they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the cap's going to be next year. I don't get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's going to go up like 40, $45 million probably. And the Eagles might need every single penny of that. And again, when you're, I don't want to say bottom feeding, but when you're not competing for the highest paid free agents, you're not going to be that active in the first few days of free agency. I would think the guys at the Eagles, and they've always done this, and it's not a bad thing to do. Wait till the first round of guys gets overpaid, and then start looking at, all right, where's their value? And you can get good value on the third day of free agency, the fourth day. And they've done that. They've done that in the past. I mean, they've signed free agents up through August, at times, up through the summer. So there's going to be good players out there that they can afford. They just got to figure out who they are. Hey, Eagles fans, let me tell you about the Eagles Fan Cruise. This is your dream vacation. Tickets are selling out fast. The ship sails with Eagles fans and only Eagles fans next March. So book your tickets today at PhiladelphiaEaglesCruise.com.
Reuben, so some of the big contracts we've seen so far have gone to pass rushers, and they've actually gone to guys returning to their teams, Shaq Barrett and Mario Okwara in Detroit, and Barrett obviously in Tampa Bay. And you wrote about this, but it's interesting to think what it might mean for Derek Barnett, because we're getting real close to deadline time with Barnett. Right now, he's on that 5th-year contract, or the 5th-year option year on that contract. So we're looking at like a $10 million cap hit for Barnett. It's too high for a player like that, but I don't know if releasing him is an option either. He's a 24-year-old pass rusher. We're seeing how valuable these guys are around the league. What do you make of all of it?
Yeah, I think what I make of it is that guys of his skill level are going to get contracts bigger than I expected. And Mario, I mean, it's a different story because he's kind of an ascending player where he started as an undrafted free agent with the Giants. He didn't play much. He had 1 sack in 2 years. They cut him. And then he goes to Detroit and has three years, has 19 sacks, which is the same number of sacks Barnett has in 4 years here. I mean, Okwara has been in the league 1 year longer. Barnett has half a sack more, but they're similar players. And he got a deal. What's the number?
339.
39 million over 3 years. That's 13 million a year. And I'm thinking Barnett, if he hits the open market, is going to get like 8 million a year. I think they overpaid for him, but he had 10 sacks last year. Barnett's never had a 10 sack season. So in a way, you think he's still ascending. Maybe he becomes a 12 to 15 sack guy. You hope so when you give him 13 million a year. But it really does kind of, if he's worth 13 million a year, now maybe the Eagles think about, do we keep him on the $10 million, qualifying number for 1 year? It's kind of a cap killer because the whole thing counts against your cap this year. But you're thinking, if you're Barnett, you're thinking, well, why am I going to sign an 3 years, 4 years, 32 million with the Eagles when this guy who I'm better than, I'm a first round pick, I'm Derek Barnett, just got 13 million a year. So I think their chances of signing him to that long-term deal we talked about might have gone down a little bit. And if you're him, you're like, if I hit the open market, I might get a deal like that. So maybe, we've said all along, I didn't think there was a chance in hell that they would give him the $10 million. But they got to decide how good he is, how much they like him, and, if it's worth letting him hit the open market. Because, there's been a run on edge rushers, and, he's one of those guys that if I'm a coach somewhere, I look at him, I'm like, that's 12, 13 sack guy right there. If I can keep him healthy. So it's a really interesting situation. And I think I'm guessing that their chances of keeping him might have gone down a little bit today. It's just all about how much they value him. I can't imagine they want to pay him the 10 million. But if that might be the only way to keep him now.
Yeah, and you don't want to get rid of a 24-year-old pass rusher. We know he's underperformed. We know he hasn't lived up to the first round pick. We always joke that we have differing opinions on him. I think he's a pretty good player. But there's talent there. We agree on that. There's talent there. He's still young. It's a premium position around the league, especially in this city. And we'll see how the new coaching staff values the position. But everywhere values pass rush. It's not like that was a Jim Schwartz thing. Like, everyone needs rushers, and I'd be real hesitant to cut him loose, because if they don't agree to a deal, if they let him test the market, he's gone.
He's gone. Yeah, no, you're right. It's just how they want to allocate that money, and they could get him under the cap, but it would take up, that would take up. If you sign him to a 4-year, $30 million deal, his cap hit could be, a cap hit this year of $4 million. So you're talking about making it like $6 million higher, and then you have to deal with him again next year, being a free agent. And I just don't know if he's that good. I don't know. I don't think it would surprise anybody if he went and signed with somebody and had 14 sacks next year. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
You can't let that happen, though, right?
You can't let that happen, but you don't know it's going to happen.
Yeah, but if you keep him, it can't happen.
If you keep him, it can't happen. But if you keep him, he might, it's a big commitment, and he might end up getting 6 sacks. I also think Josh Sweat is pretty good pass rusher who you have under contract at a minimum deal for a 4th round pick for another year. You just signed BG, so you have BG around. They don't have much else other than that. Vinny Curry's a free agent. They're going to end up signing Vinny again, aren't they? Vinny only had like 1 sack less than Derek Barnett last year. He signed Vinny for $985,000 minimum wage. So a lot's going to go into it. I'm fully confident the Eagles will screw it up. No, it's a tough call. I don't know. You sound like you would pay him the 10 mil.
Yeah, I wouldn't like it. And that's probably unpopular. I would think most people wouldn't, but it's just such a premium position. He's still so young, and I've seen enough flashes from him to think that if he stays healthy, he can be a really good player. So I probably would, but I'd understand if they didn't. The problem is right now I'm looking at it and thinking they can get there without him. without restructuring him, without really giving him a new contract. I mean, they're close. They're close right now to being cap compliant. They're before the Brandon Brooks restructure, they were just over 17 over. So you figure that's going to save another 8-9 mil. You're down to around 10. You can do this. You can get there. Well, yeah. I mean, the easiest one is Marquise Goodwin.
Marquise Goodwin is easy.
I mean, that's
$4 million.
$4 million. Yeah. So, I mean, they're going to get there, obviously. It's just how they do it. And I initially thought there was no way. I was with you. No way I'm paying Barnett 10 mil. But I always thought the route was going to be to sign him to a deal. You know, I thought sign him to a deal or cut him. But the idea is sign him to a deal. It's scary to me to let a guy go who's that young, who has talent and just hasn't put it together. If you're the Eagles, you would hate to see him go elsewhere and just take off, and that's a real possibility.
Yeah, it is. And also, I think the fact that they weren't able to sign him, and we're sitting here 2 days before the start of the league year, tells you that, you know, he and his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, they're waiting to see what the market, you know, how the market defines itself for edge rushers of his ability. And I think that happened today.
I mean, he has all the leverage.
Yeah, exactly. So if they couldn't sign him before today, which they obviously couldn't, and we know they were trying to, then I don't know how they're going to sign him now. I think now it comes down to either cut him or the 10 million, because I don't know. I just don't see him, because I don't see them sign him to a 3-year, $39 million deal or anything close to that.
Yeah. And it's tough because even before this, he had leverage, right? Because it's like, all right, I'm not going to sign something. I have $10 million coming to me on March 17th if you don't make a decision. And now I think he should feel pretty confident that he'd get a pretty good deal on the market. And even if he doesn't get 10 mil a year, which he probably would, it might be inflated. I mean, I'm guessing the Aquara contract's inflated. We don't know the specifics of it yet, but I'm guessing there's some inflation there. But he'd get a contract with more than 10 mil guaranteed, I would think.
Yeah, I would think so. The other part of the equation is that, you know, guys are starting to, I mean, teams with edge rush needs, you know, Barrett went back to Tampa, Aquara went back to Detroit. So there's teams out there. I mean, there's a demand for edge rushers.
And there are still guys out there too. I mean, you have Ngakoue and Clowney. I mean, there are pass rushers out there.
Curry.
And it'll be interesting to see,
Curry.
It'll be interesting to see what those guys get paid. And It'll be interesting to see the timing of it too, because they have all the time in the world. The Eagles and Barnett have 2 days.
Right. Yeah, that's the other thing. They have a deadline, 4:00, 3:59 on Wednesday. They have to decide by then.
Yeah. We buried the lead here. Rudy Ford heading to Jacksonville, a 2-year deal. Nice little chunk of change for him. We'll see what's actually guaranteed there, if anything's guaranteed. He was a good player when he was healthy. I mean, he was a special teamer. He's not. I don't think the Eagles even really viewed him as a defensive player. He's a special teamer. He's a hell of a gunner on the punt team, which is why are you rolling your eyes at me? It's one of the most important positions on the special teams units, and he's one of the better ones I've seen. Honestly, he's really good at it. He just can't stay healthy. Played 18 games in 2 years. I mean, I think he was on the IR like 3 times this year.
Yeah, can't count on him. Always hurt. Good luck to him. Wish him well in Jacksonville. I don't think
Would you like to see the Eagles start to place a little higher priority on special teamers again?
It's interesting. I think
they tried with him.
Yeah.
I mean, they got him for cheap, but they kept him around as a special teamer. They got him for nothing because they traded Bruce Hector to Arizona. Then 2 weeks later, he was back on the Eagles practice squad.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think it's tough because they've been in the position where the bottom of the roster guys have had to play so much the last couple of years because of injuries. And it's tough. It's tough to carry a couple guys like that who don't really have a position. Like, I mean, they got away with it, like with Maragos, because he never had to play safety, or rarely had to play safety.
But he did it. I mean, and when he did, he got exposed.
Exactly.
That's the scary part.
That's the issue. So I think I'd rather have a guy who's maybe not as good a special teamer, but if you have to play him, especially with this team, they can't keep anyone healthy. So I'd rather have a guy who's a decent backup, a decent special teamer, as opposed to an incredible special teamer, but he can't play on defense or offense. And then you have to play him because you always got to have guys hurt. I mean, I appreciate those guys and what they do, but it's a luxury I'm not sure the Eagles can afford.
I guess I'd like to see a little more emphasis on it. I go back to the Maragos, the Brian Brayman's, like those types of players, the Sadie Ajir Tutus. When you have, I just wanted to say that name, but you have, I think there should be a little bit more emphasis on it than they've had in recent years. I think it would help. And I'm curious to see with the new staff. Different head coaches every head coach cares about his offense and defense, but I think special teams really goes the way the head coach wants it to go to a large extent. The head coach can kind of pound his fist and say, I care about special teams. I need guys who do that. Or they kind of say, I'd rather you get me more on offense or more on defense. And the GM ultimately makes a decision, but the head coach matters a lot in that. And that's why you see teams like, and practice time too. Some coaches don't carve out the practice time for special teams. And you see it on the field. A team like the Ravens always have good special teams. It's no coincidence.
Yeah, and when Andy was here, I mean, Harbs had back when they did two-a-days, the second practice was a special teams practice. I mean, he let Harbs run the practice. Harbs was considered an equal of the two coordinators. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that's always the case. He even had his own press conference.
Yeah, I mean, which Dave Phipp did last year.
I guess he did, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a ideally yes, but I think especially for a team that's in a rebuilding stage, it might not be the best use of a roster spot.
I get it. And I told you not to go off on a tangent. Here I am talking about special teams as free agency opens. So I will apologize. I will take that one. I'll raise my hand. That's my move, though. I'll own it. We'll be back with you guys later in the week as news breaks. We're not going to give you a schedule because we'll kind of be flexible and we'll see what the Eagles do. It's an exciting time of the year, though. We'll see what happens. They don't have a lot of money, but they're going to do something. We know that.
Yeah. And I just want to mention one thing for podcast fans. John Clark's new podcast is starting up, and looking forward to it. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah, Take Off with John Clark. He always gets great guests, so that'll be fun to see. If you enjoy Eagle Eye, do us a favor. Please.
Great White. What was that song that Take Off? Remember that song? So the Great White North? Dave's giving me that look where he doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about.
That's just nice.
Finer. All right, I'll shut up now. Say goodbye. So thank everyone. Say goodbye. I'm done.
This is where I tell them to please rate and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button there. And we appreciate you guys as well. For Reuben, I'm Dave. We'll talk to you soon.